Okay, so the account must be available to install on remote machines. So for example, if I want to install here an SCCM client, it will ask for some kind of wizard and then it's going to install, right? So while installation, it will use some kind of account. So the account must have a permissions on the target computer. So in this case, we need to configure an SCCM client push account, so where it has all the permissions. So all I have to do is I have to go to the domain controller and say I must have to here create a user account called client push account under administrative tools, activity users and computers. Under users, simply create another user called SCCM client push. Okay, so this account is, we're going to create this account and it must have a permissions on all the machines wherever you're trying to push the software. And the password also can't change. That's what the setting I can set it. So this permission, I mean this machine should have a permissions on all the computers. So in my case, the computers are available under India computers OU. So on these machines, I'm going to set a group policy where I can have local admin rights on this machine. So I'll simply say, so in any company you might have already an account, already a GPO which will have the local admin. Okay, maybe the name is not same, but it does the same work. Local admins GPO. So in this, I'm gonna add here. I should be. So this is going to be built-in account, which is called administrators. Okay, I'm not going to add, but the member I'm going to add as client push account should be added. Add to this group. So I'm going to add this, and here I can give the same name, in fact, which is given here. So to open up, otherwise it will change that description to something else, which I don't want to be done. Administrator, and this is the description which should be there. Okay, and that's it. Once, or you can target it the way you want it, but now I have applied, and I can enable this group policy to link to entire India computers. So local admins GPO. If I go back to my Windows 10 PC example, run GP update /force. So the new policy should apply automatically, and under groups I should have that account. So this account is now applied as part of the group policy. So now I have the permissions. So what I can do is from my configuration manager console, now I go to administration and then select site, and if you look at in the ribbon button, client installation settings, so there is something called client push. So on this, don't go to the first tab and enable it right away. Be careful when you're trying to do that, it might do other things. So better first you go to the account section and add the account, new account, which is CCM client push account, and the password which you have given. Okay, and you want to verify some of the network share you can give, but in our case we don't have anything, but I've typed the password properly. Let's see, it is in caps. Yes, it is in caps, because my password is caps, so I have configured properly. Now the account has configured. The second option would be here. Okay, so the site code, if you remember, while we try to install the SESIM client, we use a command line called SMS site code equivalent auto. So instead of auto, you can give as a lab. The same command parameters are available under installation properties. So if I give here whatever the properties that all can be executed on the remote computers automatically. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything here the modifications, but if I go here, enable automatic site wide client push, that means if a new machine got discovered, it automatically install the SESIM client. Okay, if you enable this option, okay, and it's gonna install automatically on all the servers. Do you want to install automatically on a server? For example, one of your server admin has built a Windows server, you want automatically SESIM to be pushed out, then you need to take this checkbox. Okay, and similarly, if somebody built a new machine, then workstation, so it will automatically push the software. Okay, and also you want to push this SESIM client software on SESIM servers, you can take this checkbox. Okay, and at the same time you want to exclude your domain controllers not to push, you can take this checkbox. Okay, or never install on domain controls. If you want a control manner, you would definitely choose this, but if you are targeting even domain control also automatic installations, then you can take it. It's all depends on your company. Some companies will they don't want to install an SESIM client on servers or domain controllers because they wanted to manage their own. In that situation, you would check out the servers as well as this, and then you enable it. Okay, but in our case we are not enabling this. Okay, I'm going to enable this later point and we'll see how to do that. So what I've done is I have just installed this. I have just added the account which can be used for the client installation. So what happens if I don't enable? I have to go to each client, for example domain controller, and say install client, and then that gets installed. Okay, so in our case on a domain controller, because we have not targeted this group policy to also to apply on domain controller, because domain controller is different, because the user account does not have permissions, because it's just a normal account which we are going to add for administrators. So what I have to do is I have to add another account which is domain admin account also, if I want to install any domain controller. So let's configure that, or before that, just install client here, install SSM client on CM01, install. Okay, and say next. I mean, this is the checkbox is not applicable anyway, and always install software. If you have already found, it will repair and redo the installation. So I'm gonna do that now. So we are going to install an SESIM server, SESIM client. So that's it. It will trigger the installation after some time, automatically will get as a client as is. Okay, so in the background what happens is we will get a log, okay, which is a program files csim.log. okay, so under logs you have csim.log abc. Okay, this is a log which would use, you see here what we tried to do is we tried to install on CM01, and it is trying to install with the local credentials, okay, which is admin with the machine account. If a computer has a permissions on all those machines, it will try to connect. If it is not able to open, then it will use another account, which is the SESIM account, client push account. Okay, in our case that's not the case, because it itself has the permission, so it's gonna install in a minute. Okay, and this is a log file for the client installation. Okay, from the console, if you want to see, it just handles till the push only. After that, the client has to generate their logs. Okay, so this is the high level. What all the things we will do is boundary group, then discovery, and then you have to configure your client agents. That means what are the features you want to enable. Client agent means what are the features you want to enable. Say example, you want to configure endpoint protection, you have to go to the sites here and enable the required role. So simply here right click, add roles. So you have different roles are available, so you can choose any of these roles. Say example, you want to enable endpoint protection, you can enable it. Okay, by default it doesn't enable. You want to enable reporting point, software updates, you want to go for operating system deployment related, state migration, all that can be enabled if you have actually uh, configure as an initial step. Okay, what happens if I want to configure later point? You're most welcome, you can also do the configuration later point of enabling these roles. So that's what we're going to do it. Each specific feature related options we are going to enable when it is needed for us. Okay, so in this step um, I'm gonna explain the, in fact I have already explained that boundaries, boundary groups and discovery, and then roles, what are the features you want to enable that can be enabled as part of your roles, and then the client agent would be enabled as part of your final setting. Once that is done, you can configure your clients to push the client, okay, with the with the client settings, which you need to configure from the client push account here. And this must have the permissions. Once you have the permissions, you can in fact push the client software. Okay, so if you see here, it is a question mark, so client is installed, but it is still yes, because just it is getting installation is happening in the background, it's not yet completed. I mean, maybe the initialization is not yet happen. It might happen in a minute or so. We can see here configuration manager. If you see here, still the actions are not fully performed. That's why it's still on a question mark. After some time, once the all the actions completed, that means whatever the things has been installed, all of them gets enabled. That means it will go and communicate with your SCSM server and checks for the client agent settings, and it will publish here, hey, you have hardware inventory is enabled, software metering is enabled, power management is disabled. That all will be reported back to the SSM client based on its client settings. Then all this populates. Okay, it takes some time. It is still in a process of registering. To show the client push also, I'm gonna enable I'm actually creating another Windows 10 PC so that I can show the client push also. This is going to be a next installation of Windows 10 or at the VM, which I'm going to do it. And once I have completed this installation, I'll show you on client push how can I do it from the SCSM console. I'll fast forward this complete installation and creation and joining the domain every step. Accept the defaults. Yeah, it's done. So I'm going to add it into the domain. So I'm not going to change the computer name as whatever it is there, but I'm going to add the machine to the domain straightforward. Let's click OK. Welcome. I'll restart the computer quickly. I'm logging with just to test that account whether joined or not. We can log into the domain. Sorry, that's wrong. If you see, the machine is already added to the domain, and if I go here and do refresh, yeah, I got this machine also, the new machine, which I should be added to the proper OU so that my other group policies will apply. So let me also add this computer to my RDP location here in a minute. Add this computer and just double click. It should be logging in like that. The machine is logged in. Well, let's go to the SCSM server and see this machine is already discovered because it's been almost close to 5 minutes. So the heartbeat discovery has discovered, sorry, the Delta Discovery has discovered this machine, and it is showing as a no client. Okay, now we're gonna install the client. Simple. If you see here, install client. Next. In fact, we have done this very similar this wizard on a domain controller. If I'm sorry, on a CCM server. Now it is showing as the client is enabled. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna enable client push method for everyone. So if a machine is available as a workstation, okay, and it should automatically install the client. So it's gonna automatically install the client if it is a workstation. So I'm just clicking on apply. Make sure that you have this push account is configured, and this account must be a member in your computer management and local users and groups. Under groups, administrators, that account must be available. So this is already available, so we are good. Now let's simply apply. Okay, what we are doing is we are enabling this automatic site-wide client push. So whenever it is found any of the machine, it gets automatically push the client. So let's see if I can see anything. Yeah, you see here the configuration has a little bit changed. So in a minute it will show the information. So it's starting the process somehow. Yeah, it started, and the client is able to connect, okay, to the connection, and it is copying this file. So what is happening is, if you can read this log file, it actually copies the CCM setup.exe to the target machines admin dollar means C:\Windows, and from there it creates a CCM setup. If we go back to the this system target machine, it is as simple as that. C:\Windows is the admin dollar, and you see here CCM folder got created, right? So under this, the files are getting downloaded automatically and the logs are getting generated. In a minute it actually installs the complete CCM, and in a minute you may get it here as CCM folder also, and then client gets installed. Here we can see now CCM also when we refresh, and under this everything getting installed, and the logs also gets created in a minute. Once the client is installed successfully, we can see that. Refresh. See here, logs are getting populated. See, logs are getting generated. So client is initiated and CCM exec is started, and once the service is started, automatically it goes with the further process, like coming up the agent, control panel, applets, all that will happen automatically. So this is all about the high-level configuration. The high-level configuration includes boundaries, where you need to configure your IP ranges or subnet or Active Directory site name, and then that boundary must be associated with a boundary group. Boundary groups gives the content information as well as the site code information, right? So that to be configured post, so that you can discover. If you ask me, or if you ask anybody, is it discovery is mandatory? No, discovery is not mandatory, but discovery helps you to find out all the machines, so that later point you can push the client software automatically. That's where the discovery is required. Otherwise you don't need a machine to be a discover. If you don't have a discovery process also, you need to install manually that client software, and then once it is installed the client software, it will communicate with the SCCM server, and then it acts as a normal client. So discovery requires only to discover the objects. Later point you can install against to the discovered machines the SCCM client. Okay, so once you discover, you can think about what are the features to be installed, and you can enable the required roles from the SCCM console, and also you can do the this is where the roles will be enabled. Here you need to select your server, the default, or it's already there. You can enable whatever the role you want here, and also a role associated client agent might need to be configured, or you might have to change it to the way you want it by creating a new client agent. I'm gonna take another session on only client agents, Then once the clients are installed, it comes under devices automatically here. In the next session I'm going to talk about the collections and the remaining objects which are frequently used, so that you would be more comfort in the SESIM console. Thank you for watching this.